She didn't pick up our daughter, then I discovered her secret. It shattered my heart in pieces. Yesterday started off so normal it hurts. I remember waking up early, smoothing out the collar of my shirt, and feeling this quiet pride. It was a celebration day, 10 years of running my own business, and finally, I was being honored. I had a table booked at the venue, colleagues I respected clapping me on the back, and my assistant even brought my favorite coffee without me asking. Life, I thought, was finally leveling out. I looked at a picture on my desk before leaving. My wife, Crystal, and our daughter, Mary, beaming with matching grins. That photo always gave me fuel. We'd built something beautiful from nothing. We were high school kids with no money, no guidance, and a newborn strapped to our future. But we made it work, or so I believed. Crystal was supposed to pick Mary up from her cousin's place that afternoon. She said she wanted to spend some quality mother-daughter time. I agreed immediately. I'd been busy all month with deadlines and managing a massive contract. Take the whole afternoon, I told her. I'll be home late anyway. At the event, I felt like a king. Speeches, handshakes, polite laughter. But around 3 p.m., I felt my phone buzz and saw her cousin's name. Odd. She never called me directly. I stepped outside and picked up. Hey, is everything okay? Her cousin's voice was tight. She never showed. I waited for over an hour. Mary's asking where her mom is. That cold squeeze hit my stomach. She didn't come? She said she'd be there right after lunch. Well, she wasn't, the cousin snapped. You might want to check in. This isn't like her. I hung up and opened Crystal's location on my phone. Blank. Location off. At first, I shrugged it off. Our area is notorious for poor signal. Hills, spotty towers, tech problems, it happens. Still, something nagged at me. I made a polite excuse to my staff and left. The celebration didn't matter anymore. When I picked Mary up, she was quiet in the back seat, just a little tired and disappointed. That part hurt the most. Crystal always talked about how close they were, about wanting to be more present. This wasn't like her. When we got home, Mary went straight to her room. I walked in and immediately noticed Crystal's purse on the entryway table, keys, phone, and wallet inside. She was home. I called out her name. No answer. That's when I heard it. Soft murmurs, then laughter. A man's voice. I froze. I took slow, careful steps up the stairs. My heart pounded in my chest like it wanted to break free. That laugh, it didn't sound innocent. It sounded intimate, relaxed, familiar in a way that made me sick. At the top of the stairs, the bedroom door was cracked open. I pushed it gently with my fingertips. And there they were, scrambling like scared animals, half-dressed. Crystal's hair was a mess, her face flushed, and the man, some fucking stranger, was tangled in the sheets, trying to roll off the bed. They looked like they'd been caught shoplifting, not cheating. He tried to stand, but tripped over his pants. I said nothing. I stepped aside, opened the door wider, and pointed downstairs. He didn't argue, didn't make a sound. He bolted out with his shoes in hand like a coward, and I heard the front door slam shut. Crystal stood there, arms crossed over her chest, her mouth twisted like she was annoyed. Don't do this in front of Mary, she said coldly. I blinked. Do what? Make a scene. I laughed, and it wasn't a happy sound. I just walked in on my wife in bed with another man, and you think I'm the one making a scene? She rolled her eyes and pulled on a shirt like I was inconveniencing her. I messed up, okay? It's not like it meant anything. Then why him? Why today? She sat on the edge of the bed and looked away. Because I'm tired, James. You're never around. You're always working. This month, we haven't touched each other once. Because I've been building a future for us. For Mary. Well, I need more than that. I need to feel wanted. That was her defense. That she didn't feel wanted. Not that she was sorry. Not that she'd hurt me. Not that she'd put our daughter second to some stranger with good timing. I slept in the guest room that night. I couldn't even look at her. But the next morning, she acted like nothing happened. Made coffee. Asked if I wanted breakfast. Even laughed at a meme she saw on her phone. I felt like I was going insane. And then came the real twist, because it wasn't the first time. I didn't mention a word to her that night. I just sat in the living room in complete silence, pretending to scroll through my phone while my mind kept replaying the sound of that man's voice from upstairs. It wasn't a hallucination. I knew what I'd heard. And that awkward scuffle behind the door before I opened it, the look on her face when I stepped inside, that wasn't confusion. That was panic. She tried to play it off. Said she was watching a movie and had her AirPods in, but the Bluetooth had cut out. She even smiled when she said it. But I could see the shift in her posture, the way her hands trembled slightly, the way her eyes never met mine. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling of the guest room and waited for answers that never came. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. Made coffee, packed our daughter's lunch, even kissed me on the cheek before I left for work. My mind was screaming, but I said nothing. I just kissed my daughter's forehead and drove off in silence. But that's when I started digging. I had to know. I wasn't going to confront her without something solid. That's how they twist it on you. Make you feel insane, like you're imagining shit. So I checked our cell phone records. Nothing too unusual. Then I remembered our router keeps logs of connected devices. So I checked that too. There it was. A phone I didn't recognize connected to our Wi-Fi just yesterday during the exact time I was at the company event. It was in our house. It wasn't hers. And it damn sure wasn't mine. So I went further. That night, after my daughter went to bed, I told my wife I was working late in the home office. I waited until I heard her shower turn on, then quietly crept into our bedroom with a cheap burner phone I picked up that day. I tucked it into the back of her closet, hidden behind an old purse she never used, and set it to record. I needed proof, something real, something she couldn't spin into a lie. If she was going to meet him again, I'd catch it. For 3 days, nothing. She was colder than usual, distant, but never confrontational. But then Thursday came. I had a meeting in the city, and as I got in my car to leave, I saw her dressed like she used to when we were dating, tight jeans, makeup on point, hair done just right. But she didn't think I noticed. She barely said goodbye. I doubled back an hour later and parked a block away, watched from behind tinted windows. And just like clockwork, an unfamiliar gray sedan pulled into our driveway. My blood turned to ice as she ran out and hopped into the passenger seat like it was the most natural thing in the world. She didn't even look back. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped my phone trying to take a picture. I followed them. Through town. Past them all. Into a residential neighborhood I didn't recognize. They parked at a small Airbnb tucked behind trees. One of those quiet rentals you wouldn't think twice about unless you were looking. She was laughing as she walked in with him. Laughing. It was like watching someone I didn't know. The woman I married, the one who struggled beside me, raised our daughter, helped me build our life, was nowhere in sight. And the worst part? I didn't feel anger. Not yet. Just a deep, gut-wrenching emptiness. As if something inside me had just stopped working. That night, I retrieved the burner phone. She never found it. But what I heard nearly broke me. The audio started low. Just the rustling of clothes and a bit of ambient noise. Then her voice, unmistakably hers, giggling like a schoolgirl. She said, "You always know how to cheer me up. He's so boring now, always working, always distracted. Honestly, I don't think he'd even notice if I disappeared." Then the man's voice. Calm. Confident. "Well, if you're gonna disappear, at least bring the wine." They both laughed. And then came silence for a few seconds, maybe kisses, before her voice dropped lower. "Sometimes I imagine it's you when I'm with him. I feel bad, but not really. He's so obsessed with providing that he forgot how to be a husband." I paused the recording. My knuckles were white, and my heart hammered in my chest. This wasn't a fling. This wasn't a moment of weakness. This was premeditated, ongoing, and deeply personal. She resented me. She pitted me. And yet, she pretended everything was fine for our daughter, for appearances, maybe just for the house and car and vacations. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd ever truly known her at all. Every late night she claimed to be with the girls. Every weekend trip to her sister's. Every time she'd claimed she was too tired, it all came rushing back with new, horrifying clarity. The next morning, she acted normal. Made toast for our daughter, kissed her on the forehead, even packed her lunch like the perfect mom. She turned to me and smiled. "You're quiet today," she said. I looked her in the eyes and replied, "Yeah, just tired. Big day." She nodded and left. And as the door closed behind her, I felt the switch flip inside me. The numbness gave way to something sharper: resolve. It was time to stop playing the fool. I called a private investigator that day, gave him all the details I had, names, descriptions, photos. Told him I wanted every single movement tracked. And then I made another call to a lawyer. I wasn't just going to confront her. I was going to take control. By the end of the week, I had it all. Photos of her entering the Airbnb hand in hand. Financial records showing hotel reservations under her maiden name, even screenshots of texts she never thought I'd see, pulled from a backup I secretly restored. But I wasn't ready to explode yet. No, I wanted her to feel safe, comfortable. Let her dig her hole a little deeper. And then, when she least expected it, I'd tear the mask off. That Friday night, I set the trap. I told her I had to fly to a supplier meeting out of town, something she wouldn't blink twice at. She kissed me goodbye at the door with that same casual ease, like she wasn't actively destroying our family behind my back. I drove 3 blocks, parked, and walked back. Quiet. Focused. She'd turned off her location again. Of course. 2 hours later, a car pulled into our driveway. Not a rideshare. Not a delivery. Him. I watched from the shadows as he walked up like he belonged there. No hesitation. She opened the door wearing the silk robe I'd bought her on our anniversary. I felt something inside me snap. I almost walked up and ended it all right there. But I waited. They laughed. She poured wine. Same script. He flopped onto the couch like it was his second home. And then, just like that, they disappeared upstairs. I didn't need to see more. Instead of rage, I felt calm. Detached. This was the moment I had prepared for emotionally, legally, and mentally. The next morning, I returned home just after sunrise. She was in the kitchen, making pancakes for our daughter. When she heard the door, she turned and gave me a surprised smile. I said, "Meeting got canceled." She blinked. "Oh, that's strange. Everything okay?" I just nodded, played along. We were a happy family again, at least for the weekend. But Monday? Monday was war. I met with my lawyer and submitted the divorce petition with all the evidence. I asked for full custody, asset protection, and a restraining order against the other man. The lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Patricia, looked over the files and whistled. She said, "She really thought you were blind, huh?" I replied, "She thought I was weak." That's worse. Later that night, I sat my daughter down and asked her how she felt lately. She mentioned Mommy had been busy with friends a lot. Said she missed our movie nights. I hugged her and said, "We're going to fix that." "Just you and me, okay?" She nodded, her eyes wide and trusting. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to scream and curse and burn it all down. But the truth is, nothing hurts more than realizing someone you built your world around saw you as an accessory. A paycheck. A placeholder. The following weekend, she got served. Right at brunch with her girlfriends. Public, humiliating, timed perfectly. She stormed into the house hours later, livid. She shouted, "How dare you pull this shit on me?" In front of everyone. I stood my ground and said, "How dare you bring another man into our home? Into our bed?" She didn't even deny it. Just scoffed and said, "You act like you're a fucking saint. You work all the time. You left me alone." I snapped. "I worked to give you a life. A home. A future. You didn't just cheat on me. You spat on everything we built. And now? You're done." She stared at me, her lip quivering, not with guilt, but rage. Like I was the villain for catching her. She whispered, "You'll regret this." But I didn't flinch. I whispered back, "No, you will." That week, everything moved fast. Faster than she could react. The court granted a temporary custody arrangement. Our daughter would stay with me until the hearing. I had the house secured, changed the locks, and left her with just enough notice to collect her things under supervision. She screamed, cried, swore, begged, and then flipped right back to venom the second she realized I wasn't bending. She said, "You're ruining our daughter's life. You're making a huge mistake." But I saw through it now. Every word was a performance. A script she had probably rehearsed with that smug prick she let into our home. Speaking of him, he hadn't shown his face since that night. Probably scared after the restraining order was issued and the paperwork landed on his doorstep. I hoped it stung. I hoped it embarrassed him. Hell, I hoped it made him sweat. But something kept bothering me. A voice in the back of my head. Not everything added up. So I started digging deeper. You see, when betrayal punches you in the gut, you stop trusting instinct. But paranoia? That becomes your best friend. And mine was screaming something wasn't right. The affair, sure, that was obvious. But the way she behaved afterward? Too calm. Too smug. Like she was still holding all the cards. So I hired a private investigator. Not to track her. I had enough dirt on her already. I wanted to know about him. Mr. Smooth Talker. Mr. Casual. The man who didn't flinch walking into another man's house like it was his. The PI called me 2 days later, sounding disturbed. He said, "You sure you know who this guy is?" I said, "Well enough. He's nobody. Just some loser she dragged in from her yoga class or something." The PI said, "Wrong. This guy's been around. 3 different last names in the past decade. Moved cities 5 times. And he's not just some affair-having idiot." I froze. Then what is he? He's a con artist. A seasoned one. Buried in lawsuits and quiet settlements. Targets married women. Especially women with access to money or business info. Gets in their heads. Makes them think he's the one. Then, he either blackmails, bleeds them dry, or both. You're not the first husband to get blindsided. I felt cold. This wasn't just cheating. This was a setup. I asked, "You think she was in on it?" The PI hesitated. "Honestly, probably not at first. But from the messages I pulled, it looks like she caught on. And stayed. Willingly. That hit harder than everything before. She knew. She knew. And she kept going. And then it made sense. Her calmness, her arrogance. She wasn't just fucking around. She thought she was winning. She had been helping him access company emails. My accounts. Confidential data. I had shared too much with her over the years. Laptop passwords, client names, contracts. All in the name of trust. Partnership. Now that trust was a loaded gun pointed at my head. But she'd miscalculated one thing. She didn't marry a fool. She married a man who'd been broke and bruised before and rebuilt. And this time, I wouldn't just fight back. I'd bury them both. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there in the guest room, watching the ceiling fan spin in slow, deliberate circles, thinking about how much of my life had been a lie. Not just the marriage, but the partnership I thought we had. The secrets whispered between sheets. The plans made over cheap wine on the back porch. Every one of those moments now felt tainted, like memories someone else had lived. But I wasn't the man to stay down. I'd come from nothing once before. I'd clawed my way out of it, with a kid on my hip and a backpack full of textbooks. If they thought they could use my own ambition to bleed me dry, they picked the wrong guy. So I started playing the long game. First, I locked everything down. Emails, access points, shared drives. I brought in a cybersecurity consultant who scrubbed every device I owned. We found spyware. Keyloggers. Some installed over a year ago. The betrayal had been simmering long before I saw that bastard in my bed. Then, I met with my lawyer. I laid out everything. The affair, the spyware, the PI's findings, the messages we had pulled from old cloud backups. Turns out, my wife wasn't as tech-savvy as she thought. Her deleted messages? Not really deleted. What we uncovered painted a clear picture. She'd been actively feeding him information about my company, contracts in development, vendor relationships, even internal discussions. They were planning something big. A siphoning job. Drip by drip, they would have drained me until I noticed too late. But now, I was holding the leash. My lawyer gave me a look after reading everything. He said, "You want to blow this up?" I nodded. "Good," he said, "because this is going to be bloody." I filed a civil suit against the man she cheated with, fraud, attempted corporate espionage, and emotional distress. Then I filed for divorce, full custody, and an emergency financial freeze to lock down any shared assets. Her accounts were flagged the next morning. She called me crying. She said, "How could you do this to me?" I replied, "You fucked a con man in our bed and tried to sell out the company I built for your daughter's future. You tell me." And then I hung up. But here's where the twist really sank its teeth. A few nights later, I was going through a storage bin of old family photos, just trying to clear my head. I picked up one from years ago, a summer barbecue at her cousin's house. Everyone was there, smiling, drunk, carefree, and in the background, tucked barely in frame, was him, the man I threw out of my house, standing just behind my wife, looking straight at the camera. The timestamp on the photo? 5 years ago. Long before any chance meeting. Long before yoga class. Long before any cracks in our marriage had even shown. This wasn't an affair. It was a plan. From the start, I stared at that photo for a long time, longer than I probably should have. My fingers trembled as I held it, not from sadness, but from the raw, pulsing fury rising in my chest. 5 years. They'd known each other that long, and she'd never said a word. No mention of him. No passing story. Not even a hint of familiarity when I introduced them at that neighborhood block party 2 years ago, where she smiled at him like they'd just met. I started digging deeper. Old texts, archived photos, social media tags she thought were deleted. I went through her cousin's old Facebook albums, one by one, like peeling back the layers of a festering wound. And there he was, in the background of her life, always watching, always there, at the grocery store, at our daughter's birthday party. 3 years ago, at our anniversary dinner where I proposed a vow renewal, he was at the damn bar across the street. I felt sick. This wasn't just cheating. This was infiltration. She had planted him into our lives like a parasite, slowly nesting deeper until I was too blind to see it. The thing that chilled me most wasn't the sex. It wasn't even the betrayal of love. It was that they were waiting for something, some trigger, a threshold to be crossed. That month I'd pulled in the biggest contract my company had ever seen, millions on the line. And suddenly, she's whispering about leaving. Suddenly, he shows up at our house. They were going to take it all and run. But now, they were exposed. And I wasn't done. I hired a friend in the DA's office to look into the guy. His name was fake. His LinkedIn was fake. His company didn't exist. But his real name? It was tied to 2 fraud cases in Nevada and 1 sealed investigation in Florida. He was a career scam artist. He used women to infiltrate businesses, either through relationships or marriages, then stripped them from the inside out. And my wife, the woman I married straight out of high school, the mother of my child, had been his willing accomplice. The only reason he hadn't disappeared yet? He underestimated me. They both did. I made one last move. Quietly, carefully. I set up a final meeting at the office, asked her to come by to talk. She showed up acting like we were going to work it out. Hair done, makeup perfect, soft voice trying to sound innocent. She said things like, "I miss how we used to be," and "We can fix this for our daughter." I played along. Let her talk. Then I opened the laptop and turned the screen toward her. Every photo, every message, every date, his real name, his charges, her deleted texts. I said, "You didn't just cheat on me. You tried to ruin me, and you used our daughter to do it." For the first time, she didn't have a comeback. She just sat there, silent, exposed. She sat there frozen, staring at the laptop screen like it might blink away what she was seeing. Her hands trembled, but not from guilt. It was fear. The calm, manipulative mask she wore so confidently had shattered. I could see the panic swirling behind her eyes as the weight of everything I knew finally settled in. I leaned forward, my voice low. I said, "I could go to the police right now. I could have him arrested. And you? You'd be complicit." She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Just the weak flutter of her lips trying to find an excuse that wouldn't sound hollow. That wouldn't make her look even more monstrous. But there was nothing. What could she possibly say? Then she whispered, "Please, don't ruin me." I laughed, an empty, humorless sound. "You already ruined yourself." I had no intention of destroying her, not legally. Not unless she pushed me. I didn't want our daughter growing up knowing her mother went to prison because of me. But that didn't mean I was letting her off the hook. I told her she had until the end of the week to pack her things and leave. I'd already filed for full custody and placed a hold on our shared accounts. I'd notified the school and had her removed from pickup access. She wasn't losing just me, she was losing the life she tried to hijack. As for him, my DA friend paid him a visit. A quiet one. He vanished that night, like the cockroach he was. I don't know where he went, and I don't care. But I made sure every door he might crawl through next was locked, tight. The fallout in the weeks that followed was brutal. My daughter was confused. She asked me, "Why isn't Mommy here anymore?" And that broke me more than anything. I told her Mommy made some big mistakes, but Daddy would never leave her side. I swore it on everything I had left. Then came the twist I never saw coming. About a month later, I got an email from someone named Claire. She said she was the ex-wife of the man my wife had been cheating with, the scammer. She'd found my contact info through a mutual connection and said she had something I'd want to see. We met at a small cafe, neutral ground. She handed me a folder full of documents. Bank accounts, transfer histories, offshore activity. Apparently, this guy had done the same thing to her. Used her name to siphon money from a wealthy family business. But the kicker? My wife wasn't just a side piece. They were married. Legally. In another state. They'd married during one of her solo spa weekends 2 years ago. I didn't even know bigamy was still a thing, but apparently it is when you're a con artist and your other spouse never files taxes. Everything, all of it, was a setup. I'd been married to a ghost while she was married to the devil. And somehow, I survived it.